Roshan, welcome to the Modern People Leader. How's your Cinco de Mayo going?
Oh my goodness. Cinco de Mayo is one of my favorite days because I am obsessed with piñatas.
With what?
With
With
Oh,
piñatas.
piñatas.
piñatas. Okay. Wow, okay. Did you
They
are,
make me happy.
did y'all go buy one?
We did. So I actually have some friends that are going to have a Cinco de Mayo party, and they got the
Ooh.
piñata especially for me.
Oh, my favorite.
And
Yes,
and and do y'all have like is one of your friends good at making margaritas? Like what's on
they are.
the menu for tonight?
They're making carne asada, they're
Oh,
Oh,
horchata, margaritas. I'm gonna say on the horchata side because me and alcohol, I think if I just smell it, I get drunk. So I want to get my full aim for my piñata time. So I'm gonna be on the non-alcoholic stuff. But I think sometimes when it comes to piñatas, you may think I'm a little drunk. So
yeah.
it,
Well, what
I
are
don't
they?
know why they make me so happy, but as you can see the smile on my face, they really do make me happy.
No, they're fun. What are y'all filling the piñata with? Just candy?
So I'm a chocoholic, so I'm
Okay.
sure that they're going to make me happy and have some chocolate in there, but some hard candy like the traditional Mexican candy. But I was like, hey, make sure that there's some Hershey Kisses in there. So
There you
nice.
go. Yeah, I'm going to happy hour actually with my parents
mhm,
and my wife in
nice.
2 hours. And it was actually my parents' idea. They're like, "What are y'all doing for Cinco de Mayo?" We're like, "Nothing." And
I
they
love
gave us
it.
the invite, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, nice.
All right, so let's get into good news stories. So every episode we start the exact same way, and that's with good news stories, and just a way to start the episode on a positive note. So we
Mhm.
all go around and share something that's happened in the last week or two. It could be work related, it could be personal. Um, and who wants to go first?
I can.
Perfect.
So I think my good news story happened today. We have two of our ERGs are they were once commingled. It was for our Latin and our Black employees called Array, and they are now separating into two separate ERGs. And so we had the brand kickoff call, and just watching like the amount of work that has gone into the creation of their individual logos, but seeing like the celebration from each group come together and like the love that was shared amongst them, and being able to just be like the chief diversity officer looking at all of this goodness take place it was invigorating because we had individuals from Chile, from Santiago, from Atlanta, from Canada. And I was just like, wow, look at this diaspora of just belonging and culture and really promotion of other people's experiences. And so I thought that was amazing.
That's exciting. That's really cool.
That is really cool. Hard to follow
I
up.
know. You want to go next? Or
I'll go next.
okay.
Yeah. So, to our frequent listeners, they now know that I sold my company, my other business called Workify, 3 weeks ago. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind. We were talking a little bit about this before we hit record. And so we took our first trip to headquarters of the acquirer, another amazing company called Terryberry, and we had our first trip out there, and it was 48 hours of just back-to-back meetings, so in-office meetings, social events, and it was exhausting, but really really good meetings. The first 90 days for these M&A transactions, in my opinion, are the difference maker. Like, we can really, depending how the first 90 days go, can really impact the trajectory of what we're trying to do. And so I feel like we're in a really really good place. So that's my good news. I survived my
That's
first,
excellent.
yeah, the first HQ trip.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
In my good news, so as many of our listeners know, because we've talked about it on the show, I went full time on the Modern People Leader in November. So now that I'm full time with this, because the first 2 years we were doing this, it was a hobby, it was for fun. We weren't trying to monetize the podcast, but now that I'm full time, like we have to make money, right? And I've spent a lot of time doing sales, so doing sales outreach, taking sales calls, like the whole thing. And the good news is that it's looking like we're going to close another sponsor. and I don't want to jinx it, so I'm going to knock on wood.
Yeah, me too.
But we have a verbal close. It's out for signature, and that's always a great way to end your week. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited for all of our listeners to hear more about that partnership.
Yeah.
More to come soon, and I'm sure that the ads for that partner will probably run before this episode goes live. But yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Oh, that's nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay. So for most of the people that we talk to in the show, we always do like a prep call. And me and Steven both had conflicts in our calendars the last couple of weeks. So we actually don't know that much about your story. Usually we have a prep call and we get the whole download. So I'm actually like really excited to hear your story. So yeah, what's the story? How did you end up at PagerDuty? How did you end up in DEI? I want to hear it all.
Okay, so in a quick wrap up, I'll tell you, I started as a business leader within Iron Mountain, faced with a new facility that I had to open and operationalize, and by the way, make it profitable. And what I found is that I had a collection of people that were just coming to work but not connecting, and reaching productivity was not happening with very much ease, even though there were things rolled out, communication was very clear. And what I realized is that there were just cultural nuances that we were not connecting on. And so I approached it from, how do we create our Iron Mountain culture? And how do we make this not about who we show up as, but who we actually are? Like, I want to know what happens in your community. I want you to know what happens in mine, so that we understand the ebbs and flows of what's happening when we're outside of these doors, so that we are more appreciative of those that come in. And unbeknownst to me, I think I self-started our facilities ERG is really what it was, and leverage that to help our salesperson sell more effectively and help the out product be more efficient, and help him with his customer approach, because our frontline employees really understood what the customers were asking, because they were filtering the customer service calls. And so within 18 months, we were profitable, and we weren't forecasted to be profitable for 24 months. And so, of course, senior leadership is looking like, okay, how did you make this happen? And I said, well, I didn't make it happen. We made it happen. And we have a team community philosophy here. And we have a group of our shipping department that in the spring, their sons are in soccer. We don't do big lifts in the spring. We make sure we have very skilled contingent workers that come in the spring to help that offset that time. And so what they were seeing was the cultural nuances that were being supported in order to leverage the profitability and the organization of our team. And so they asked me, would I come over to another division and do that for them? And I was like, I don't know if I want to do all like that. That took a lot of work and a lot of emotion. But what I really found was that it really did invoke something in me, because I've always been a human enthusiast. I have always loved different experiences and really wanted to be this very well-rounded individual as a woman of color coming from a very homogeneous community that did not look like me. I was always searching for opportunities to connect with people. And so I took the opportunity, went to that division, cultivated that division, and really drove an affinity and a very clear understanding for the impact of ERGs, but also the business imperative for DEI. And so I had a business leader ask me a very direct question, and he thought he was going to get one answer, and I gave another. And he asked me, so where do you see your career going? You're this great global leader. You're very well recognized in Iron Mountain's global senior leadership team. We're looking at you for a number of different positions. And I was like, I'm going to be a chief diversity officer. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like, where did that come from? And so I said, I've been doing all of this upskilling.
And how many years ago was this?
That was like 15 years ago.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no worries. And so I just said, that's my goal. Like, I'm going to do that. And he kind of looked like, you're like a business guru. Like, why would you want to do that? And I was like, why would I not? And so it became this thing of dispelling all of his uncertainties about where I saw myself and who I saw myself presenting as, because he thought of it as a discipline that wasn't going to be leveraged over the years. And I looked at it as creating experiences for people who don't historically get those opportunities. And so because I knew what the workforce was becoming, I felt like I owed it to the workforce to be a champion in that work. And over the years, that just drew me to PagerDuty.
And in PagerDuty, what like how did you end up there?
You
What's
know,
the story with that?
it's really, really interesting. So over the course of the pandemic and obviously the tragedy that happened to George Floyd, I was actually consulting and was overwhelmed with like how many people were reaching out and wanting to what they thought solved their problems, but it really was, I think, people wanting to demonstrate that they weren't racist. And so it was this whole notion of, am I really solving problems, or am I making people feel good? But I don't want to get away from like this work, like the real impact that this work does. And so I said, I'm going to just throw my hat in the ring and go back into corporate America. But I really want to do it with an organization who actually wants to create change and to create a sense of belonging and to really create culture, not skill towards numbers or representation, that they really wanted to make and be inclusive of all experiences within an organization. So I saw this, I was on LinkedIn and I saw this PagerDuty and I was like, PagerDuty, like nobody uses pagers anymore. What are they talking about? And I just kind of applied online, and 8 hours later, like the recruiter called back. And I was just like, okay, this is unheard of. I haven't gotten this kind of response in years. And I was somewhat apprehensive, but once I sat down and I talked with the recruiter, she was so poignant and well skilled on what their point of view was when it came to hiring diverse talent. She was very involved in what I felt was a great process. And when I talked to the leadership team, they just were in line with what I envisioned seeing, not only my career, but the impact that my presence would bring to the organization. And so at that point, I was having to choose between 4 different companies. And it was a very difficult decision, but I think I made the right choice.
That's awesome. So it's funny when you said that your immediate reaction was like nobody uses pagers anymore, but it made you want to learn more. Like, what does this company actually do? So that's my next question. Like, how would you describe to a family member? Like, let's say, your mom, she hears that you had an interview with PagerDuty and wants to know more about the company. Like, what's the quick explanation?
So I always give the our true explanation, because I do want people to know what we do. We are an operations platform, but when I put it in simple terms, we are an organization that keeps companies up. We keep uptime, but we also make sure that you don't go down. And so we work with companies to solution the needs of an organization, making sure that your systems are up, but also best practices so you don't have to go down.
Got it. And why should me and Steven be jealous that you get to work there?
Oh my goodness. Well, listen, I am a fan of our employee base. I think we have some of the most innovative, diverse, and just inclusive mindsets that work there, but also because we are on the cutting edge of operations technology. And I feel like it is definitely a place where you can bring your authentic self, but you're also given a platform to explore, to innovate, to create, and to leverage your ideas. And so anyone that doesn't want to do that, you must not want to bring yourself to work. So for me, I think it's the perfect place for me to not only leverage my own career path, but also to advance the needs of others.
Love it. And so yeah, I want to zoom out a little bit. I love your story. I love what PagerDuty is doing, but I want to zoom out and like focus on the first half of your journey, and then we'll shift back to like the current transformation you guys are going through at PagerDuty. But one of the things that I really related to your story was having been in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you were part of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs before you were a practitioner, right? So it sounds like you got involved with the facilities ERG, is that right? And
Mhm.
you're probably nominated by someone like, hey, Roshan's we found her. She's the perfect person for this to help us out. And that's how my career or my experience in diversity, equity, and inclusion journey, how that played out. So I was a consultant at Ernst & Young, and I was involved as a consumer. I was part of the Latino network. And then at Goldman Sachs, similarly, I was part of multiple ERGs. And then fast forward to my career, then I had an opportunity to become diversity officer. But before I even got there, I just really remember having had the opportunity, the first opportunity, really, really vividly in my mind. And so tell us about that first program that you helped create. Why were you selected? What was that experience like? And more importantly, how did it impact your career? Because it sounds like it sent you on a totally different trajectory. So
Totally different path.
so tell us all about that. Tell us more.
I think for me, it was about being able to connect with all levels of our facility. So the fact that the team wanted to make sure that their leader wasn't someone who was just in that corner office creating policy or signing, time cards or whatever the nuance they thought that leaders do when they're quote unquote upstairs, but they really saw that I walked the floor, that they wanted to feel connected. And so when we thought about creating community and they thought about creating this ERG, it was a very different ERG, not like how we experience ERGs today, because it included everyone. There wasn't a
Ah,
charter, there wasn't a specific identity. It was you work in the Rancho Cucamonga facility, you're part of the ERG. And really what it was us creating our own sense of belonging. We didn't call it belonging back then, but we wanted to be identified as a group. And we wanted to be recognized within the other divisions because we were a brand new division. We wanted our own brand identity. And so we then said, okay, we are going to call ourselves an ERG, but we're going to operate like a family. And as
love
part of
that.
the family, you have to understand what it takes for this person to come into that nucleus. And you have to understand what barriers there are for someone else coming in. So one of the things we had was a language barrier. And how are we helping those where English is not their first language? Like, what are we doing to ally? It's not making sure that everybody understands English, but what are we doing to learn Spanish? What are we doing to learn Tagalog? And so we had classes on helping one another practice one another's language. Well, what it was really doing was upskilling our own ability to be bilingual. And so when we pitched it, we weren't saying that we were allying, we were creating entities where we had a workforce that was bilingual. And so we started educating one another in order to build stronger business practices. And so I think what our leadership saw was the ability and the influence that culture had and inclusion had on the outcomes of what our business was driving. And so we took those things to, like trying to be bilingual or understanding scheduling, to really impact what does the sales cycle look like? The reason why you weren't being productive before was because you were dropping large scale sales in cycles where we didn't have the manpower to support it. And we weren't being able to forecast when you were going to drop these things. And so we had an alignment with our operations team and our salesperson, and that just made things run smoother. And so our sales cycle cut down from 6 months to 4 months, and then down to 3 months. And the ingestion time went from 2 months to 2 weeks. And so again, advanced productivity. And so we were able to get things in the organization. Obviously, that's pleasing our customer. So our customer was not experiencing a lot of downtime. And then our customer service got better because our operations team and our customer service team were in sync with our sales team. So we didn't always need our salesperson to answer the questions because we were very well versed in it. And what we did was showcase all of that to our business leaders in a business plan. So it wasn't an ERG plan. It was, this is how we've become more profitable. We took the human experience and operationalized it and leveraged that to increase sales.
And my guess is they were pretty blown away. Just hearing some of those metrics, you probably dropped some jaws when you walk them through that. And
Yeah.
so as far as the impact to your career, like this, it sounds like it just elevated your visibility. It sounds like you were already a very successful executive. And so tell us a little bit about that. And then obviously it resulted in you pivoting
Mhm.
and laterally changing which organization in the company you were working for. And so what was that making that decision like for you?
I think for me, one thing it really did do was enable our senior leadership to view me not just as a business leader, but someone who could take the vision of the organization and verbalize that to a larger audience. And so it really did put me in the forefront of the image of what they wanted a new leader to be within Iron Mountain, and obviously a more diverse image because I'm a Black woman and they were a predominantly white male over 50 organization. So they saw that as an opportunity to upskill diverse employees into a leadership position, and one in which that was front and center. But I think for me personally, it also enabled me to leverage the business skills that I had from just being at that regional level to that global leader level. And that came from the exposure of our executive sponsor. So had we not have organized ourselves to really be an ERG and leverage the business acumen that we were getting from our executive sponsor, I don't think I probably would have been given as many opportunities. But because we leveraged that relationship with a senior executive leader and really did understand like the power that drives from being an ERG and having an ERG mindset, which is having a charter that's focused on advancing the needs of the organization through the charter of your ERG, that became a differentiator for us because we weren't just diverse employees wanting to have better benefits, but we were showing the business imperative for what diverse perspectives bring to the conversation or bring into a business plan. And I think for me, that's what kind of took my career in a different direction. But I never forgot about the team that made all this happen. And I wanted to make sure that opportunities were put in place for them, just like they were putting in place for me. So not being so insulary to say, okay, I'm gone, you all. I kept saying it wasn't just me. What are we doing for those individuals who are really at the foundation of all of this? And because their title looks different than mine, does not mean that their ingenuity is different from mine. Their diverse perspective should be should be equally valued like mine was. And so that's where that advocacy came in to say you should not have respect of one's title, because it was the foreman of the shipyard that actually made the suggestion to change our operational focus. And so making sure that those small voices in the room were given the same opportunity as those people that had large titles.
Ooh, yeah. And, being an ally and just being there to promote the team is so important in all of this. So love that from the beginning, that was part of kind of what you were contributing. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were recently well, I guess not so recently, although it feels like the other
It's been
day.
like a month now.
It's been a month.
Which actually isn't that long ago.
So we were at the Transform conference about a month ago, and we had some spicy conversations there. And one of the pieces of feedback was that some of those the individuals we spoke with, they were like, "Hey, I love this real talk. Like you should be doing more of it." And so I wanna have a real talk segment with you here. That was all a tee up because that was like what 15 years ago, around 15 years ago that you were shifting from consumer of diversity programs to practitioner, and you pitch
Mm-hmm.
yourself as a chief diversity officer. So that's been a little while. A lot of things have happened over that period of time. And so for this real talk segment, we're just going to riff on the topic of diversity and inclusion and progress. I want to talk about progress and just have a real conversation. Like if you look back to that first DEI program, or maybe when you took the when you pitch yourself and you won that job, you got the job of chief diversity officer. Some of the things, the goals that you had as an individual at the company, just impacting the world, because I truly believe as DEI practitioners, we have the ability to change the world. I
Mm-hmm.
really do believe that. And so if you kind of put yourself in that context, I got a few questions to ask. Are you cool with that? All
I'm
right.
good. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So my first question is, Do you think we are making real progress, and why? And this is, of course, in the context of diversity, equity, and inclusion over the last like 15 years, let's call it.
So I would say that there are two shifts of momentum that are taking place.
Okay.
I think that when you look at it from a 15-year span, I absolutely do think that we have made progress because we're having the conversation and people are developing roles and programs to advance equity within their organization. I think there's also a spirit of, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because now, with the recent tragedy of George Floyd and just the heightened brutality that's going across all race and ethnicities, is that what's sparking it? Or is that really who you are? Like, are you really trying to create an inclusive culture? And I think what you're seeing is this paradigm shift of those companies that are actually committed to doing this work, and it is authentic to their workforce. Like, this is how we are showing up as an organization. And then you have organizations that are doing it because it's the hot topic and this is a nice to have, or the coin phrase that just kills me, it's the right thing to do. It's like, if you're saying it's the right thing to do and you don't have a personal stake of why it's right for your organization, you need to go back to the drawing board. You should be, just like a business plan, you should be able to articulate why it's important to your organization and where you fit in the landscape of how you action that belief. So I think that there's much work to be done. I don't think this work is ever done. I think because as we evolve as human beings, the human experience is going to change. And so we've got to constantly be in listen mode, to be in adaptive mode, and to be in education mode.
And I love what you just said. These are my words, not yours, of course, but it's not good enough to just hear it's the right thing to do. And as I was hearing you talk, it was like, yeah, like there are a lot of right things to do that companies could be doing, but they're not doing all those right things to do. More often than not, there's a large number of things that you're not doing that are the right thing to do day to day in the business context. And so to just say like, oh, well, for this thing, it's the right thing to do, it seems like it's diminishing why for this work, and it's avoiding the real topic and the real meat on the bone to just say, oh, well, it's just the right thing to do.
And I think when you really look at it, when you hear that from well-established organizations, you have a business goal, you have business plans, you have clear, drawn-out strategies that are advancing your business. And so when you don't really define what right is, you are allowing someone else to narrate your story. So as a practitioner, it's always like a red flag for me when I hear that, because I immediately get exhausted. Because I recognize that that's someone who's got to be coached to say, okay, where are you? And I've got to bring you along that process. You don't even have to align with my point of view, but if this is my stance on DEI, and this is why it's important to my organization, as a human being, I've got to respect that. That's how you're presenting to the world. But if you don't, you open yourself up to people's perception about who you are. And if you've got a company values, a mission, a vision, a purpose, and you can align on those things, then you should be able to align on the brand and the integrity of your organization.
Love it. And so this wouldn't be real talk if we didn't look at the opposite side of my first question, and that is like, in what ways do you think we've taken steps back, or do you think we've taken any steps back when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think that is really contingent upon the organization and the actions that organizations take. So when I hear about companies that are saying they're getting rid of their DEI plan, I immediately go back to, if you're having concessions in your DEI offering, what other concessions are you making in your organization? And what improvements have you made to circumvent where you're taking these programs away? And were you the same company that were saying in 2020, I'm standing with you? Because if you are, then something in that equation is not adding up. But I look for organizations who are consistent in their messaging, who I often say to people, you know where an organization or even an individual's priorities are, where their budgets are. If your budget says this is what we're doing, I know that that's a priority because you have to answer to stakeholders. You have to answer to a board if you're a publicly traded organization. And so I just believe that in some instances, those companies, those individuals, those entities that were in the height of emotion and feeling were saying we're standing with you no matter what that cause was. And if they're not still there today, then you have your answer.
Yeah, and I guess I'll say it. There definitely are companies that are not still there today. Like
Exactly.
you don't have to look too far past like what we see in your Apple News or your LinkedIn news feeds to see that companies are swinging back. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's really the last thing that I wanted to focus on in this segment, and that is I've noticed that the pendulum seems to be swinging back. Like it swung to like, oh, this is so important. This is critical to our business. We've got to do this. Now it's swinging back now that suddenly profitability is an issue and is a focus, and activists are clamoring for more profitability. Now companies are swinging back to the other side. And so with that in mind, why do you think the time is now to double down on DEI?
So, when you really think about what DEI represents, you often hear about the business imperative to DEI, right? But let's just talk about the facts. If your customer base if your employee base doesn't look like your customer base, then you're out of touch with the needs of your customer. If you don't have diverse perspectives in the room, then where's the innovation driving from? If the three of us, even though we might identify differently, have the same perspective and the same experiences, we're only going to come to the same solutions. So if a third party comes in and they're looking for something that we don't have a point of view that is going to advance that customer's needs forward. So when I look at diversity, I look at it as having the best thought leaders in the room, and those don't all come from one place. So you've got to be able to diversify both experiences, talents, ethnicity, because that's what brings innovation together. And then if you flip it over to the cost of what it takes to replace an employee, I think it's a business imperative because you have to assess 33% of one person's salary into rehiring them. That's money that you could have reinvested back into the organization if you had a stronger retention program, if you had a better emphasis on what the employee experience was. So when you look at it overall, and then you look at the diverse market and you look at the buying power of a diverse market, if you aren't diverse, you've lost a whole entity that you could be selling your goods and services to, who are in this next generation, they're looking for organizations that have them in mind. And so if they're a diverse community and you're not diverse, then there's a disconnect there.
Definitely. And I love how you put it, bringing the best thought leaders from the organization into the room. I don't think we've ever heard it articulated that way. And that's really what you're doing. So I want to talk about PagerDuty's DEI journey. And you started there in what, August 2021? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So it's been a couple of years. And when you got to PagerDuty, so, you show up your first day of work, was there already a DEI function or were you building from scratch? I'm sure that there were some foundational things in place, but give us like the quick view of what it was like when you walked in the door at PagerDuty.
I don't know if you noticed the smile that came over my face.
We did.
I thought back to the conversation that I had with our chief people officer, and I said, gosh, everything's so wonderful here. Do you all really need a chief diversity officer? Like, I think you're doing everything great. And then I got inside and I was like, oh yeah, you all need me. But they needed me for where they wanted to go, right? So one of the things that I can say that attracted me to PagerDuty was our social impact philosophy, and our leader is so incredibly inclusive. So while they had a transitioning DEI platform, Olivia Khalili really did an excellent job of making sure that our outreach and our social impact outreach was inclusive. And it was inclusive both of a variety of communities, but also underrepresented communities that we were touching. And so for me, it was looking at what was being built there and seeing that as an output of DEI work and trying to really understand, like, how do I build the momentum for inclusion, equity, and diversity within this organization, and make sure that there's something demonstrated afterwards, that we're looking at behavior and that behavior is driving action, and that action is really modeling our core values. So over the course of almost 2 years, it really has been this evolution of learning, evolution of education, upskilling our ERGs from just siloed entities into a platform that we call Prism, and then leveraging that from just creating community to really creating concerted change within the organization, to giving them a point of view on the impact that they're going to make on the organization and what they require of our leadership, and then building out an ID&E mindset within our leadership group, and then holding our leaders accountable, starting with our senior executive leaders accountable for our diverse representation. So it has definitely been an evolution. I'm looking forward to where we're growing to, but I'm so proud of the work that we have put forth thus far.
Ooh, did I hear that you're holding your executives accountable to diverse representation? Did I hear
Yes,
did I hear that right?
You did. If you read our diversity report, our 2 commitments for FY24 is building or having an adoption for an ID&E mindset, and then holding our leaders accountable for diverse representation. So we are going through an extensive CEO direct accountability plan that really is meeting our executives where they are and helping us really root cause, like, what does the diverse experience look like at PagerDuty, and how are we going to support and drive that experience into the future? And again, it's based around wanting to make sure that we have the right thought leaders in the room, and that room is inclusive of the experiences that those individuals are having and those individuals will have in the future as we grow.
So you said something that that caught my attention. You said we want to go from more than just building community, but to actually driving change. And I feel like a lot of companies do a really good job with their ERGs of creating that community, but struggle when it actually comes to driving the change. So I love how you frame that. And I wanted to, I guess, dig into what setting up the DEI function look like for you. So you come into the organization and you're like, there's good foundational work in place. The chief people officer did a great job these last few years setting up maybe some ERGs or whatever was in place before you got there, but there's a lot of work to be done. How do you even begin to think about what to tackle next? And then how do you break that into like actionable chunks over the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and then now we're 2 years later? Like, what did that process look like for you?
So, we use the framework of working backwards. I was not familiar with that term prior to coming to PagerDuty. So first, it was a lot of learning for me, understanding the culture, taking that time to really get my own sense of belonging and to understand, like, what was being expected of me as a leader. And then how was I going to drive that learnings to our organization and create a platform? And so I started with the ERGs because for me, quite frankly, that was the easiest one to tackle. And it was the easiest one for me to understand the sentiment of the employee base. And if I could understand the sentiment of the employee base and really understand the experiences that they were driving, I could leverage that experience in having conversations with our leaders about what does policy look like? How are we going to operationalize ID&E and what that looks like? And so once we got the evolution and really built out an ecosystem for our ERGs, and it came from, now we have a foundation, but where are we actually going as an organization? Are we leveraging our core values? So it was me working with our culture and strategy leader and working with our social impact leader. So we came up with this unified mindset of how are we driving change within the organization. It wasn't just about DEI. It was about how do we advance the business mission forward. And so it was then looking at, okay, Now we're looking at ID&E guiding principles, and how does that stand up within PagerDuty? Are people receptive to that? And is that like, if it's a new concept, how are we driving adoption for that understanding? So it went back to, okay, now we have a new concept out, let's work on upskilling. But if we just do these things in silos, we're not working backwards from somewhere. So the idea was, as we frame out the offering, let's operationalize it, let's put some expectation to process together, and then let's create some commitment so that we can measure ourselves over the course of a year. And so we are right at that commitment stage, and making sure that we have operationalized our offering, that there is some expectancy, and there is a goal that we're driving to, and that is building a more equitable world. But what does that look like in year 1? And what does that look like in year 5? And what does that look like in year 15? So building out some milestones from there. So this year, it really is about adopting that ID&E mindset and actioning that, and being able to see that demonstrated and modeled from our executive leaders. And the results will be not only increased in diverse representation, but an increase in our nonprofit partnerships and how we serve our communities through a more strategic lens that's focused on where we're driving the company.
You mentioned that with Iron Mountain, that there was almost an immediate impact on the business, and you could easily quantify it. So I'm curious, are there any big business initiatives that you're attaching this work to?
As of yet, I think we're still shopping some of that within PagerDuty. I would say that the biggest one for me is making sure that we look at the well-being of our employees. I feel that, post-COVID, there is a lot of psychosis and experiences that people have verbalized and have not verbalized. And I think that when we think about advancing our platform and really taking it to the next level, my focus is tying that to the well-being of our employees and how we support them as we scale our organization. So not quite a business initiative, but it is the start of something more to come.
And I guess, like, what's to come? Now that the first couple of stages of the work are behind you, what do the next year or two look like for PagerDuty and the DEI journey there?
I think for me, the question that I've been talking with, my leadership is, what is our point of view? Our mission is to build a more equitable world. And so how are we contributing to that? And so I'm so proud of the work that we've done with pay transparency and pay equity. And I'm looking at that as one of the levers that we pull in order to advance this work and build a more equitable world, but also exploring, what does diverse representation mean to the business, and how were the financial implications of diverse representation? So we've already achieved pay parity, and now we're looking at setting some goals on our representation and being able to take that to other organizations and help them achieve the same thing. Because as a singular organization, we're not going to change the world, but together as a tech lever, we definitely can. And so when we look at technology as a whole, all of the changes that we're going through right now are really going to set us up for the future. And I look at this as the best opportunity to get in at changing things and really looking at best practices, so that when we're on that upswing and the pendulum shifts, we're able to adapt to that shift. And we understand the psychosis of our employees, those that work for us now and those that are working in the future, because that demographic looks very different than the demographic that we're in today. And so building out programs that really can scale and support our future workforce.
Love it. You guys, you've been busy. You've been busy, Roshan.
Definitely busy. I wear a lot of hats, but as you can see, I definitely like to think broad, but I also like to bring it in. And it's about the ability to scale and evolve, but also being future forward. And we can solve for what is today. We don't know what the unknowns are in the future. And so what I'm trying to do is to build out this very scalable but flexible platform that, if something else, we never predicted COVID coming, right? But if something else catastrophic where it impacts the world happens, we're going to do what our platform does, and that is keep people up and have uptime. And so I'm trying to make sure that our DE&I platform is just as expansive and reliable as our actual product and services.
What I love about Well, one of the things that I love that I've heard, because there have been a lot of things, is just you've continued to mention business, the business impact, the business, that this is a business initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that completely. It absolutely has to have a business value proposition. And when I say it being diversity, equity, and inclusion, or whatever you call it or brand it within the organization, it has to have a business impact. If it's going to have legs, it needs to have a clear impact to the business. Since we've launched the Modern People Leader, we've had a lot of conversations on this topic. And I think it was Yemi, the Chief Diversity Officer at Groupon, shared with us that yeah, he agreed with everything that we said so far, but he also added that diversity, equity, and inclusion is also very much so a cultural initiative. If it is not embedded in the culture, you're really going to struggle to achieve the long-term goals that you're trying to achieve. And so you've been involved in DEI for some time. And I've heard examples in this conversation of how you've infused, whether it was at Iron Mountain and not really having a traditional ERG, but really having a belonging community for everyone in that group or that team. You turned it into a culture, right? Now we're talking about the culture of this office. To your current role, where at PagerDuty, where you described you met with the ERGs first, you wanted to understand the experience that underrepresented groups were having at the company, and then you met with your culture and strategy team, right? It was like intuitively you knew that's where I'm going next, because that's where we're going to need to do some work. And so, given all the experience that you've had across different organizations, what are your lessons learned or takeaways when it comes to DEI programs and culture building, or just that connection of DEI, that intersection of DEI and culture? How do you get that right? More importantly, how do you avoid getting it wrong so that you still have a chance and you still have credibility?
One, you never make assumptions. You always remain curious. Culture is ever changing. Culture changes every time a new person comes into the organization. And so the thing that I try to do is respect every time change exists, and to make sure that I'm constantly aware of the levers that shift culture in both a negative and a positive way, and to making sure that there's some intersectionality between what was and what is. And what I mean by that is, if I enter your culture and I am who I am, and there's no adoption or respect or understanding for what I bring into the culture, then I get diminished. But if I come in and I'm celebrated, then I get to impact all of those around me. But those around me also impact me. So we become this new nuance of where we're headed forward. And that's the intersection. It's making sure that people not only feel seen, value, and heard, but why? Why is that important? That's the imperative part. And if people feel that they can contribute to the organization from a very authentic place, they will give you more ideas. They will be more comfortable expressing themselves. They will show you where best practices from other organizations could be applied to your organization. And so I think when you approach this work from a culture standpoint, from an innovation standpoint, and also from that human standpoint, you really do drive both profitability, you create the business imperative, you establish better well-being, and you have a more inclusive organization. And so I just feel like there's several touch points, but it starts with being authentic. It starts with understanding your why, making sure you give your people a sense of belonging and a sense of contribution, and they feel valued.
So I just have a quick question out of curiosity. So a lot of the times when we talk about DEI, we call it DEI, but I've noticed that y'all talk about it IDE. Is that intentional? Is that because inclusion is the top priority?
Absolutely. When I look at it, it doesn't mean that we get inclusion, right. It doesn't mean that we have all the answers. It means that that's our primary focus. And we want all identities, all individuals to feel included in the conversation, because that's where the innovation is. And I think that by osmosis, when you invite all in, there is an element of diversity if you keep inclusion first. And it is really one of those things, when I thought about it when I came to PagerDuty, I was like, ID&E, like, why are you doing it's called DEI. Again, I'm like, I can say DEIB, or but when I really got into what was authentic within our culture. And this is why I tell people, you can't model yourself off of what's happening to your neighbor or to your, someone else in your vertical. You have to be authentic to what's the reality of your organization. That's where I believe the secret sauce is. And for us, it starts with inclusion. And when our employees feel like they are included in the holistic offering of everything that is PagerDuty, it goes off from there. And that's where the diversity comes, that's where the equity comes, and that's where the learning comes. And so for us, we very much model inclusion. We are constantly focused on it, improving it, advancing it, and we believe that the diversity and the equity follow suit.
It all goes off from there. I think that sums it all up perfectly for me. And man, I just kudos to you, kudos to your mentors or whoever all the great people that you've had a chance to work with over the years, because I can just hear the intentionality in the approach that you take, the belief, which tells me you've been very successful in implementing these. Because it's one thing to think you have a good idea and to sell the good ideas, but I believe you really, when you get into conversations like this, it's hard. You can tell when someone's just giving you the surface level answers. And so thank you for everything you've shared today. It's been a great conversation. Unfortunately, we're at that time where we got to turn the corner and we got to start bringing this thing home. And so the next segment of the conversation, we call it rapid fire questions. Same set of questions that we ask every guest. First question: how do you define a modern people leader? What are the traits and characteristics?
A modern people leader is someone who is inclusive of all experiences, who is well-versed in listening first, taking action second, and someone who's willing to lead with the spirit of understanding and empathy. I think in this day and age, if you don't have that, you might consider yourself a leader, but no one's going to follow you.
And if no one's following, then that ain't leading. So, second question: if you could go back in time and talk to a 22-year-old you, what career advice would you give yourself and why?
Be wild in what you set as your goals. Don't be afraid to look for things that appear exceptional. I think if I took a lot, I was very safe kind of with some of the career choices. And when I looked at, I was, like I said, this morning, I was on with some of our engineers and we were talking about STEM versus STEAM. And I just kept thinking, none of this was available to me. I didn't think anything about any of this. And so I think I would say to my younger self, look for sponsors. Don't always look for mentors. Look for mentors who are willing to also be sponsors. I'm a huge advocate for mentorship and sponsorship. And then dream really big. If you can think it, reiterate.
I think it was Bernard Coleman from Gusto that we had on the show, and that was what he said: dream bigger. I think he said that when he was early in his career, he wrote down a list of goals and he achieved all those goals. And now looking back, he's like, I should have dreamed way bigger.
Oh, yeah. I tell anyone that is in high school, like, I didn't work in high school, I'm like, go get a job. not a job for money, a job for experience, a job for mentorship, a job for connection. Your parents have, if you're in a 2-parent household, you have 2 experiences. When you go to work, you probably have about 15 or 20. Those are 15 or 20 people that can influence you. And if you get the right job and you explore what you want to do, you can leverage so many things in your career that you wouldn't have been able to if you didn't work. So I'm a huge advocate for working, but working with a purpose and making sure your purpose is advancing some of those items on your goals list.
Can you talk to my 11 and 13-year-old daughter about the working part?
Listen, if I talk to her, she's going to be making you form another company. So you
I believe it.
you might want to look what you're looking for. I told my niece, she's like, "Oh, I like makeup." I'm like, "Oh, so you want to have a makeup line?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "No, we're going to start a manufacturing organization." She's like, "Oh, Auntie, I think you've gone beyond." I said, "Yeah." Let's not think granular. Let's think big picture, big picture.
Think big. Think big.
Big.
All right. Last question. This is called Future or Fad. Of all the trends that we're hearing about in the people space, name one thing that you believe is truly the future of work, and one thing that is buzzy right now that's just a fad.
I want to say I'm speaking from a place of transformative human intelligence is something that is going to revolutionize the way that we work. And what I mean by that is tapping into the human experience and empathy as a vessel to create productivity is something that I don't think many organizations are looking at. But when they look at the psychosis of where we as a people are going to, you're going to have something that invokes that spirit and manages that in order to scale to the levels that we're going to go forward. So I think in the future, you're going to see more organizations that are empathetic and strategically empathetic as product and service leaders. I think when I think about what's a fad, I think anything that's not moving business forward is a fad. I mean, I think there's a range of things. I don't really get caught up in fads. I definitely am looking at things that move us forward. And so, yeah, I don't have a real solid point of view on that one because that's not kind of where my mindset goes to. I honestly stay focused on what's in the future.
Awesome. All right. So last question before we segue into one word closes. Who should we bring onto the show next? Like, is there anybody that you're following on LinkedIn or maybe somebody that you've worked with in the past that you're like, ooh, the modern people leader, they should get them on the show?
So I was just speaking to this remarkable individual. She is on LinkedIn, but I'm not sure if she is a top voice on LinkedIn, but her name is Jennifer Clark. Her name is Jennifer Clark, an amazing, well-versed individual who really talks about DEI work from being a white woman and the perspective she has on what allyship looks like in the future. She's got a remarkable story. I think she knows more Black history than I do. I was like, oh my goodness, you're teaching me something. But what I love about her is that she is very clear and able to narrate history and using those experiences to invoke positive change and using human emotional intelligence to get us there. And so I was just fascinated by her. So I think that if you had her on your show, she definitely could be someone who would not only spike your interest, but give you some very new perspectives on the employee experience.
We would love to have her on the show. All right. So we've made it to our last tradition on the Modern People Leader, which we call one word or phrase close. So we all respond with a word or phrase that sort of sums up the episode. It could be anything that comes to mind. Steven, I'm going to let you go first because I see that you have something written down.
Now the audience knows that I'm cheating. So Roshan, I gotta ask you to go first.
I'm gonna say, I feel recharged.
Ooh, me too.
Yeah. I feel recharged before going to happy hour with my parents.
Yeah, your mom's gonna be like, "Hey, did you start before me?"
I'm like, kind of. Man, it's tough for me to pick something to say. Usually, there's one thing that I have that's like underlined in my notes, but today I have so many things that are underlined.
You want me to go next? Because
go next.
Okay. I had 2 words, but I'm gonna go with my first word, and that's champions. Because at a certain point in the conversation, you mentioned champions, and I had champions. Sounds like you had champions. I know, Daniel, you've had champions, and now we're champions. And it's just, I don't know. It feels like a key part of all this.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be a leader. I tell people that.
For sure. All right. So I'm going to go with a phrase, lead with understanding.
Lead with understanding.
I like that.
Yeah.
You said it.
Look, I give you that. I'm like, all right.
And for the record, my bonus word was going to be horchata, And because I
Ah!
love horchata, I'm also NA. I don't drink alcohol, so have an extra horchata for me. I always
I
appreciate
will.
when
I
there's a
will.
nice non-alcoholic option. So
Yes, yes. Thank you both so much. This has been such a pleasure. And just being able to have this segment to talk about this work, I just feel privileged and honored that you guys saw it fit to have me on board. So thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for spending your last meeting of the day with the Modern People Leader. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And good luck to you both.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Same. Have a
Well,
good one.
yeah, have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.